Is it time for recess yet? I'm so glad you found time to join us here on the Childcare Director's Chair, where Erica Sacoccio shares her best practices that she's refined through her passion of directing childcare centers over the last 23 years. From parenting interaction, systems to save you time, money, and stress, to profitability. She shares it all from the Childcare Director's Chair.
You could lead a conversation with a family that leaves them feeling informed, supported, and empowered, even in the face of special education transitions. It's not just possible, but it's part of your role as a high-quality leader. And today we're going to break down exactly how to do it. In today's episode, we're going to speak directly to those directors, assistant directors, and lead teachers who are ready to lead with more clarity and confidence when it comes to helping families navigate the shift from early intervention to public school services. Our guest today is veteran educator and special education transition expert, Nicole Rich Bryne. She brings 20 years of frontline experience into this powerful conversation. We're going to explore what early childhood leaders need to know to be more than observers in this practice. They can be intentional, proactive guides. You'll walk through with clear, actionable leadership strategies that you can implement in your program tomorrow, from team training tips to system improvements and family conversational tools. So help me welcome our guest, Nicole, to the show. Hello.
Hello. Thank you so much. I'm
tell
thrilled to
folks
be
a
here.
little bit about yourself.
Alrighty. Well, currently, I'm going to work backwards here. Currently, I am the owner and director of Enriched Learning Academy in Cape Cod. I opened in September of 2024 after spending about 24 years in the public school side of things as a preschool teacher, special educator, assistant principal, preschool director, and then also working in higher education for 7 years. I still adjunct as a special education adjunct professor. And I also teach early childhood courses.
You've done it all.
Yes. A little bit of everything from preschool, now infants, all the way up through graduate.
So I thought this was a great topic because right now, we're at the end of the school year and lots of kids will be transitioning out of their preschool into kindergarten in the fall. So I thought it was a great topic to talk about. So let's talk about those conversations. So how can you coach with confidence? Like ways that directors or assistant directors can maybe role play conversations with their teachers so that everybody feels ready to talk to families.
This is a challenging part of it because what I learned over the years, of course, working in special education, it just became natural for me. I used to facilitate all of the special education meetings. And one thing I took for granted is that a lot of it is the repetitiveness of it, is the more you do something, just with anything, the more practice you have, the better skilled you become at it. So I took that for granted and realized that I had all those years behind me. So when I would shift to having conversations with educators or leaders that were not familiar with the process and realizing that it can be an uncomfortable conversation for some, I had to really have that lens as far as how to now coach my teachers with having a challenging conversation. So the best way to do it, first and foremost, what I always say is, we are here for the betterment of a child, to do what's right by the child. And if a child is having challenges meeting certain milestones or having challenges that helps them be successful in the room, that's what we put at the core of that conversation. So it really eliminates that personal feeling where a parent feels, or an educator might feel like a parent might receive the information and difficult information in a difficult way. So it eliminates that when you go to that core of we're doing what's best and what's right for the child, for them to be successful. So bringing it back to that is always such a great reminder in coaching teachers on how to have a challenging conversation.
Yeah, and I love the word, you kind of said the word shift, and I really like that word. So with leadership skills, like how can people shift from maybe reactive to proactive? Because sometimes if we're proactive, the conversation tends to be more positive anyway, rather than waiting till the moment where everybody's at their wits' end and what can we do? And we're talking about, terminating a child, or, your child's not the right fit. The typical, they need a smaller setting conversation that folks have. So how can people maybe have that mind shift to be more proactive?
I think we see this a lot on this side of things in the childcare world where, people go along with a certain behavior, not realizing or not knowing what to do next for the next step, or not even knowing, not knowing where to go next, or not even realizing that a challenging behavior is basically it's a signal that something's not right and something needs to change. So we need to figure out what that change needs to be and what's the best change to make. Sometimes it might be the educator themselves that needs to change, internally and the way that they're viewing it, because it can be frustrating. And I've been there where, you don't know what to do next. And then, but once you can look in the mirror and say, okay, wait, what am I doing that's actually making this worse? So shifting from the reactive to the proactive is really just, again, looking at this as what are we going to do? What's best and right for the child, but then also as far as those next steps and determining what are the best things for this child, what do they need to be successful? And like you said, sometimes it's a smaller group, and can we do that group within the program itself? Can we make that, take this larger group, make it a smaller group? And sometimes it's something as simple as that, and being willing to look at it with a different lens in that way.
That. Yeah. The other thing I think would really help people be successful is maybe we could talk for a minute about how we set up transition checkpoints throughout the year instead of like waiting until spring to start, having these conversations. Or just like the checkpoints, I think, both for the child and the educator, right? Because sometimes if the teacher isn't like opening the door and going, you got to help me now, right? We might not always remember to check in with them. But so, maybe is there a system
So true.
or something that you can recommend that really helps, those checkpoints throughout the year?
That is a great idea. Definitely. On the public school side of things, and I'll talk from that side of it because I did that for so long. I did that every week with the kids. So every single Friday, I would have my assessment out. And it was basically a basic skills checklist to make sure kids were making progress. And it would be simple things like ABCs, 1, 2, 3s, counting, basic skills. And so if teachers are intentionally doing that and doing that regularly, then it's really easy to notice when a child's not making progress, or determine how slow the progress is. And slow progress is still progress, but sometimes, if it's agonizingly slow, meaning it's from September to now, let's say May, and the child just added 2 more letters to their repertoire of letter identification, then maybe that is a red flag. So if teachers are intentionally and regularly monitoring kids' progress, like whatever's doable for them as well, I think that also could make it overwhelming if as a director, we come in and we say, you have to do this every week. You have to do this every other week. Sometimes a teacher just really isn't at that point of being able to do that. They're not ready for that. So, you give coaching, you give training, but if they're constantly monitoring the progress, maybe every 90 days, maybe it's every 60 days, depending, if there's a concern, then I would say that's reason to monitor that progress more regularly than a child that there is no concern about. And, the milestone charts on the CDC website are great. They've got, you can pull those lists from anywhere that you could really find something that helps you keep track of them.
I think too, the other thing is as our industry changes, I think that we have to really be intentional on the connections that we're, as private sector, making with local schools. So any tips on maybe how to initiate or maintain communication between the local school districts even before referrals happen?
Yes. Oh, that is a great point. And that is so much a part of how to make this successful. It's I always said on the public school side of things, I loved knowing where the kids were, who the teachers were in those programs, who the director was in those programs. And I think back in '08 is when I started I was a preschool director in a public setting. And we quickly realized that I didn't have enough things to do in my day, truly. To be perfectly honest, it was not a busy day for me. So I said, why don't I start going to the private programs and start doing consultation? Why don't I get in there and give them some tips and ideas? And so that's where things really started to shift, is because, it's important. And I don't know if private programs I don't know what the hesitation is to do that, or it may be feeling like they're bothering them or that they're not willing to. But I have to say, public school staff that are receiving kids into preschool or kindergarten are thrilled, because then they can get their eyes on the kids. They can understand these programs so that they're knowing the dynamic and they're actually seeing what's going on and being able to have a better idea and a better sense of, how to better support the
Yeah.
kids as well.
I think it comes to my mind only because when I first started, I was in the school age field. So I was very used to, very accustomed running an after school program all the time, being involved in the school. And then we opened up the preschool, and I noticed like there was a lot less collaboration and communication around that. And now I feel with like the state funded pre-K, and in our city, we have a program where some children who need additional supports will go to that half day program and then come back to us for, wraparound care. And I think that that's going to be more and more prevalent for private programs as state funded pre-K. Many of them are half day, or even if they're not, families still use us for, that wraparound. So I think it's so important to make sure that you have those good relationships. Yeah. The other thing too, I think is, leading with empathy and clarity, maybe having specific language that helps families feel supported and not overwhelmed when introducing the topics of special education.
That is so important, especially when we think of families that it's their first child. This is so new to them. First off, receiving the news that something might not be right or there's a concern, that's hard enough, and that can make them shut down. So the idea of what steps to take next can feel so overwhelming, and approaching it with empathy, like you said, and really understanding how the parent might be feeling and taking this in. I've had some situations with, a mom that was told if she wanted to have kids, she better do it now because they needed to do a surgery that she would no longer be able to. And I remember that child had such medical issues at birth that she almost lost him. So when I had him in preschool, those conversations, and that's a different kind of scenario because she knew from the get-go. But, I remember sitting with her and her saying she never expected this for her child, and so that she was eyes wide open when he was born. She knew what was happening. But sometimes families don't know. The child's 3 and the families just don't know that there's a challenge.
Yeah, I think we all can probably relate to that. Or, that they might even just say that, well, he's only 3, he'll come around, or she's only 3. And I'm like, all of the rest of the kids in the class are 3. And I'm, trying to tell you something's not quite where it needs to be.
Yes. Yeah. And you know what, Erica, that is such a great point that I was just thinking of earlier is you've got to know, you can gauge it with the family with when you first, it's like dipping your toe in the water, right? To kind of see what do we got here? Basically just seeing if the parent is ready and open to receiving any information like that. So you kind of tread a little bit lightly when you first broach the topic that something is challenging, and then are they ready to receive it fully? And sometimes it takes multiple conversations before you can dive in and really share, hey, let's explore this next level of an evaluation or a screening. And it's just, you have to be really in tune to and ready that some families might take a little longer to get to that point.
Yeah. And it's not always the families that run on high emotion. Sometimes it's our staff. So, maybe talk a little bit about how we as leaders can model curiosity and calm, like, because our teams mirror our mindset. So how do you hold steady when emotions run high?
Always going back to what am I here for? What am I doing this for? And what we do as educators is we serve. We are here to serve. We serve our families, we serve our kids, and then also we serve our educators. I've had conversations with them because it does happen daily. Teachers' emotions run high. So you pull them aside, you pull them in the office. Hey, what's going on? How can I support you? And talking through those scenarios. So the mindset of waking up every day and coming in here is basically just, how am I going to serve them today and be my best self so that I can model what that looks like and, serve our children and families to the best of our ability.
You said something earlier about, assessment. So let's talk about documentation, because I really feel like documentation with intention really could be your best friend. So what systems do you use? What do you recommend that ensure observation, data, and communication logs are ready before meetings? It invites, some support. So talk a little bit about that.
Yes. So I will say here, things are evolving with the staff and what they're using. I'm going to tell you from what I used to use myself. That was a great tool. So like I said, every week I would use those checklists, and it was a progress monitoring checklist of the basic skills for preschoolers, ABCs, 1, 2, 3s, one-to-one correspondence, all of those basic skills. And having that data is so important because the data speaks for itself when you sit down with families. And sometimes you can use that data to show the family and they'll pick up on it first. If there's something that, oh, wait, shouldn't they know all of those? So if you have a basic checklist, if you've got here, we actually just had coaches come in that use the class observation tool to look at relationships, to look at that part of it for kids. We've got another agency that was just here yesterday that is, we're part of the Wellspring Project now here on Cape Cod. And they're coming in and they're going to be used the Devereaux as well. So there are so many different tools and instruments that can be used, but you can always go back to whatever your standards are for that certain age group, and you can pull from that. And then in communication, as long as you have that regularly, you can have that conversation with families to show them, the progress that the kids are making and what they're actually producing.
Yeah. We talked about serving, and serving our staff is definitely one of the ways that we do that as leaders. So can you talk a little bit about how you build staff capacity and really be able to build your team around not just the tough conversations, but the day-to-day work that we have to, take on when we're working with children who have special needs?
Sure. One of the things I like to do is a barometer check. So I have the staff do goals for themselves after they've met the 90-day orientation. Then we get into the hardcore goals. What are some goals you're going to set for yourself? And that helps me know where they're coming from as far as what their baseline is and what they want to explore more of, what they're interested in, and what they might need more support in. Having that constant, in mind with teachers, but then also what our own mission and vision is here, and aligning those two so that I can know where we're going, where the staff is, and then where we need to be and what I need to support them in. And having, some of them are not comfortable approaching families on a challenging topic. Some of them may never have worked with kids with special needs before, or don't have an understanding that behavior is communication, or understanding that even the toddler behaviors are communication, like the hitting and the, pulling hair and things like that. And those things can be frustrating for a teacher, but then also realizing I don't have all the answers, but I can find the answers for them, and aligning and reaching out to every community resource we can that can come in and do some training. So like I said, today we had coaches in that were observing in rooms to give feedback to teachers, and using that. And then those conversations, sometimes the teachers are more vulnerable. Maybe they feel more their guard down, because I'm the boss. So sometimes, they're thinking that I'm expecting that they know it all, even though I don't. Helping the staff get to a place where they feel completely comfortable and supported, that they can say, I don't know, can you help me?
So we talked a little bit about the kids, we talked about the schools, we talked about the teachers. Let's talk about us for a minute. What are some ways, What are some ways that, some small self-care practices during like high stress transition seasons? Like what can we do as the leaders? Because, right, we know we set the tone. And if we're stressed out, how do you stay grounded?
I have a daily practice that I do that I've been doing it's changed a little bit over time. Gosh, since 2014. And it's my morning journaling, and I list things I'm grateful for. But now it's evolved to things I'm grateful for, things I'm excited about, the 3 things I'm excited about, and then 3 things I'm manifesting. And so doing that every morning, no matter how challenging, because let me tell you, there was one morning I sat there and I went, I'm grateful for my feet because I can walk. Yeah, some days you have to
Mhm.
really dig, and other days it just, but when you think of it that way and you can stay grounded in that, the simple things. I have another journal I use. It's a daily greatness journal, it's called. And that one will have different prompts and, what am I not seeing? And that's one of the questions. What am I not seeing? Or what am I not admitting that I need to acknowledge that's going on inside of me? So for me, self-care means being at a place where I can be deeply reflective of myself. And I know that when I'm overwhelmed or stressed, that's when I need to go deeper into that, because then you can pull out the better stuff of yourself. And so self-care, and I do yoga and
Nice.
karate are my 2 things, but those don't take care of that deeper level stuff, like, taking the time and making sure I'm intentional no matter what every day, at least 15 minutes of my journaling
Yeah.
in the morning with my
Great
coffee.
advice. I have some closing thoughts. The best early childhood leaders don't wait for the system to tell them what to do. They lead within the system. Supporting your families through special education transitions isn't just part of your job, it's part of your impact. So you don't need to have all the answers, like you said. You just need to lead with preparation, purpose, partnerships. So we hope that this episode helped you in some small way. We'd love for you to move forward to lead more confidently. If you have any other questions on this topic, where would folks get a hold of you, Nicole?
They can find me on Instagram at Enriched Educator. I also have a YouTube channel, which is Enriched Learning Academy, or email, but my email has been causing a lot of problems because I was not very thoughtful when I created it. So it's not an easy one to remember, but they can definitely reach
Okay.
out on Instagram.
Well,
That's
we know
definitely a way
everybody
to
goes
reach
on
out to me.
Instagram at least twice a day or 5 times
Right.
a day, depending on who you are. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I really, really appreciate you tuning in daily. Thank you for being such a great guest. And for those of you who are listening, if this is your first time listening to our podcast, please hop on over, give us a rating, give us a review. It really does help other educators find us. And if you know somebody who you think could use this episode, share the link. So that's it for today. As always, have a great day.
Well, all the cute little kiddos have been picked up and it's time to go home. And that'll do it for another episode of the Childcare Director's Chair. Please leave a review so Erica knows the information is helping you to manage and improve your childcare centers. Remember to subscribe to get the latest episode from Erica's Childcare Director's Chair.